Democrats desperately trying to explain away Mar-a-Lago as Joe Biden heads back to his Delaware house this weekend to reorganize his garage. Fallout still coming in hot over the president's mishandling of classified documents, which forced his own DOJ to appoint a special counsel. The New York Post asks, anybody vet this guy? Yep, looks like things are pretty secure in there. The FBI is said to be grilling Biden aides about how top secret files ended up next to his Corvette. And Republican Jim Jordan says his first order of business will be getting to the bottom of it. We're also learning the same house was Hunter's hangout pad. That's right. The drug-loving first son lived at the property for years and even had his credit card statement sent there. We all know Hunter would never be careless with sensitive information. It's no wonder the Democrats don't want to talk about it.
President Biden had classified documents in his Wilmington garage, is just breaking. Do you think that's irresponsible and reckless of him?
What's irresponsible is to not disclose when you have documents. He has certainly done that.
Biden people are bringing forth the documents. They're not obstructing access to them or knowledge about them.
Why did he not inform the American public 2 months ago? Do you think that was a mistake?
Well, I don't know what you're saying right now.
You seem much more measured about this than with the Trump documents, because you call for transparency with the Trump documents.
Bottom line is, I said that night, it's premature to comment on what should be done.
And neither does President Biden. And the White House is still very tight-lipped over all this and wouldn't even call on our own very Peter Doocy, who, our very own stupid son of a bitch, who makes this interesting point.
How do you think his mother?
If I would have had an opportunity to ask a question, the first one that I have on my sheet was, why is President Biden going to Wilmington today? Isn't that a potential crime scene?
I love that.
The FBI was just there the other day.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And,
question.
The amazing part of all of this is that, we know that the left decides, look, there really is nothing to see here. But the issue is not the number of inadvertently misplaced documents. It's not whether there were so few or whether he's fully cooperating. The issue is whether or not he had documents and he was grossly negligent in not keeping them in the proper storage area. That's it. End of the story. So I don't know why all of a sudden there's this whataboutism, but I got to tell you something. What I want to know, if Hunter Biden, Jesse, lived in that house where there were documents in the garage, and by the way, the garage door has been left open in the past. That's already been reported on, and the documents are right there. The documents have been there at least 6 years, because it's been 6 years since Joe Biden was the vice president. Then the question is, who had access to those documents? And if Hunter was living there, I want someone to fingerprint those documents. I want those documents fingerprinted so I know that Hunter Biden has definitely not touched them, because I suspect that there's more to it. And in addition, now we've got 3 locations. In addition to the garage, there's another location in the house. And Karine Jean-Pierre is no longer a press secretary who's worthy of credibility, because she knew on Wednesday that there was an additional location of these documents. And let me say finally that the Biden administration, in the presidential, they weren't even administration, in the presidential election, they shut down the Hunter Biden laptop, okay? They didn't want anyone to know about it, and something like 52% of Americans voted said it would have changed their votes in a very close election. Now we've got them doing the same thing before a midterm, hiding what the Department of Justice and the White House knew. And they are now, they're gaslighting the American people. And finally, I think that it is worth asking how and why this story is breaking now. Is this some of the Dems who don't want Joe Biden to run? Everybody's known about this for months in Washington. Now are they leaking it so they can say, you know what? The motive right here is we're going to tank Joe Biden and get him the hell out.
Do you find that suspicious, Geraldo?
You mean the timing of this?
Timing, and maybe the Democrats have their fingers in it?
Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. I am so sorry that I am so scornful of this story. I think that it is a big waste of time. I think that you should scold both of these guys. You should revoke their library cards. It is absolute. And let's get on with life. All of this hubris, all of this energy, all of this money, this special counsels. I predict that you're going to see the special count. It's going to be like a sparkler on July 4th. It's going to go, and then it's going to start burning down, then it's going to, then they'll be on to some other.
So you're saying
scale.
Trump or Biden, nothing's going to happen?
I think nothing should happen. I'm not saying nothing is going to happen. I think that when you examine what is this exactly? What happened here? The presidents of the United States took some stuff they thought was theirs because they wanted to ego stroke or write a book, whatever it was.
He was vice president, not a president.
He was vice president enough. And then they.
It's a legal term.
And then they just kept them and ignored them. And how many people have boxes that you put in the garage and you leave them there and they get wet and then you
With
step
classified
on them
documents in them?
and you
Not
that
many.
box. Believe me, that box is in the. Well, I think boxes and garages are an indication of how important the vice president thought this was.
Well, he said he takes it very seriously. Our boxes in a garage getting wet, taking it seriously, Geraldo.
I think that I do not take it seriously. I'm sorry. I will sit and
Washington,
watch.
D.C.
I will watch
takes it
all of
very
your
seriously.
all of your rage.
I'm not.
And all of the emotion.
I'm not
and all
rageful.
of the engagement that you're seeking.
Because
with
talking
chagrin.
about China right now. We're talking about the Ukraine.
We're not talking about that.
Yes, we are. And Joe Biden is
You
running
see
over
the
to
cable news today? You're not talking about that.
Oh, really?
You're talking about this. You're talking about this.
These
the
documents are about
garage.
the Ukraine. Joe Biden goes to meet with the Ukrainian prime minister and president 4 days before President Trump takes office. What's that about? What kind of deals do they have cooking?
Geraldo doesn't have an answer to that. Tyrus, do you have any answers?
You know what? I have been watching just riveting journalism on your show. And last night, you created an epiphany in my head, and you tied this all together in one nice little bow. Judge Janine, you are correct. They are all connected to one thing. What is the one thing in common? Hunter Biden. The big guy probably didn't know who had those classified documents because he gave his son one job: get rid of the stuff that connects to the big guy. And he was supposed to throw the gun in the garage, and he was supposed to put the documents in the trash. He had one job.
And leave the cannoli.
And unfortunately, yes, he messed it up. And he hit it. He had access. We know how many times he's been to the White House to see the big guy. We're seeing all the connections, and all this in a tight bow is going to lead to the indictment of Hunter for what he did, which will then, to your point, scorn the little girl that he made take a bus when she didn't want to. Kamala, revenge is best served cold. So if all comes at night, he will pardon his son and resign. Kamala gets the thing in one tight little bow.
Oh, wow.
You know what bothers?
That would be one special moment.
Laptop, we've got, I'm telling you.
All right.
You know what bothers the American people about this? There's a double standard, right? Geraldo thinks that these guys should, leave them alone. It's no big deal. Hillary had 110 email chains with several top secret documents among them. And we're just supposed to say it's okay. And Jim Comey gets up and says, we're not going to, but of course we're not going to prosecute in this case. Then you've got all these other folks, right? A former civilian employee of the Defense Department. These were put together by Jim Garrity. Spent 3 months in prison for bringing classified documents back to their house. Another one, 18 months in prison and a $10,000 fine for the crime of willfully retaining national defense information. Another one got 9 years in a federal prison. So, Geraldo, can you explain to me?
That was the 9 years is an espionage.
Why do the rules not pertain to the former president or to this president? Can you explain
I will answer your question with a question. How do you feel about the fact that Janine points out that this was the day before the midterms or something like that? The purported proximity makes it so relevant and so important. What if this election coming up or the candidacy of either of these gentlemen turns on this crap, on negligence? The President of the United States was not, and the Vice President of the United States, they weren't shoplifters. They weren't crooks. They weren't. They were sloppy.
Wait, former
they were
presidents
sloppy. They were
have not been
egotists.
accused of that.
What about the fact that Hillary and Joe, when these things happened, all their donations went up into the millions?
This is Benghazi.
From foreign countries.
This is Benghazi. This is Benghazi again. And then Hillary Clinton with the emails again. And where does it go? It goes no place.
Geraldo, you're not answering my question. Why do these civilians have to follow the law of the United States of America? Why is it that these individuals think that they're above the law? And I heard Nancy Pelosi screaming about the fact that, no one is above the law. Hillary Clinton, no one is above the law when it came to Donald Trump. Why are they not above the law? And why in this case? All I'm saying is get your act together. If I'm leaving the White House and I've got classified documents, I'm going, guys, check everything. I'm not walking out of here with anything that I'm going to get in trouble
This is a
for having.
lot different than a civil servant who's trying to save himself some wear and tear by taking something home. That's an arrogant move by a bureaucrat who deserves to have his wrists slapped.
And why is this not an arrogant move by a bureaucrat?
Because he was the vice president of the United States or the president of the United States. You have to give them a little.
He is a vice president of the United States, where national security is the top issue right now. And this guy is not only in bed with China and getting money from China through his son, he's got the 10%. We're talking national security here.
Were you this passionate when it was Mar-a-Lago and President Trump?
President Trump is not in bed with Russia, China, or anybody else. Really, even Mueller.
That's politics.
Geraldo, no, it's not about politics. It's about this country, and we're losing this country.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.